So we will now hear from Dr. Chi Liu, who will be speaking to us about artificial intelligence and machine learning, the landscape analysis of the AI ML related regulatory submissions at CDER, and challenges and regulatory considerations of the applications of AI and ML in drug development. Dr. Liu is Associate Director for Innovation and Partnership in the Office of Clinical Pharmacology, or OCP, within CDER's Office of Translational Sciences. Let's now turn our attention over to Dr. Liu.
Thank you, Reno, and good morning, everyone. It's my great pleasure to be here today and to talk about one of my favorite topics, artificial intelligence and machine learning. In my mind, this represents a very exciting new frontier in drug development and regulation. Let's kick things off with a discussion on why do we need to talk about AI and machine learning in drug development today. This is because the application of AI and machine learning in drug development is expanding very rapidly in recent years. And they can be very powerful tools that has the great potential to improve both the efficiency and probability of success of drug development. And it can also be used to advance precision medicine. However, with great power come with great responsibilities and unique challenges. So I think it will be very helpful if all of us can have some understanding of what they are, what they can do, where they can add value, and what we need to consider when using them. So here are the learning objectives of this session. By the end of this talk, I hope everyone will have an understanding of the background knowledge of AI and machine learning and understand the landscape of the AI machine learning related regulatory submissions for drug development at CDER FDA. And I also hope you have some appreciation of the challenges associated with the application of AI and machine learning, and also the regulatory considerations for the use of AI ML in drug development. Lastly, I also hope you get to know some of the AI ML related activities in my office, which is the Office of Clinical Pharmacology. So one of the main focus for our office is on it's centered around precision medicine, which means to find the right drug and the right dose at right time for each patient. And another focus of our office is to try to use innovative tools such as modeling and simulation to facilitate drug development. And we believe AI and machine learning can have great potential in these areas. So let's start with some definitions. So what exactly is artificial intelligence? AI is a very expensive field, and this term was coined by John McCarthy in 1955 as the science and engineering of making intelligent machines. And HHS has further defined this as the development of computer systems that can perform tasks which normally require human intelligence. Machine learning is a subfield of artificial intelligence, and in fact, nowadays in drug development, most of the AI applications are in fact machine learning applications. And a computer is said to be learning from experience with respect to some class of task if the performance of this task is improved with experience. And if you think about experience as data, this definition simply means the performance of the algorithm will improve when trained with more data. And in fact, machine learning has a lot of overlap with statistical learning and pharmacometric modeling. And within the machine learning field, there are many different algorithms. And one of the most popular algorithms is called artificial intelligence. And many of the recent AI breakthroughs are in fact powered by this algorithm. And the artificial neural network is a mathematical model that is inspired under the inspiration of the network of neurons that make up our brains. And it uses layers of mathematical units, the so-called neurons, to analyze the data. Today, I'm going to introduce 3 common types of neural networks that has been very important for modern AI. I'll start with convolutional neural network. And this kind of neural network is very powerful in medical imaging analysis. In fact, many people says the era of modern AI started in 2012 when a convolutional neural network called ANNEXLET significantly outperformed other algorithms in the famous ImageNet competition. And nowadays, CNN has become very popular in imaging-related tasks. And FDA's Center for Drug Evaluation, FDA's CDRH, has approved many software as medical devices that are powered by CNNs. And another common type of neural network is called recurrent neural network. It's very good at analyzing sequential data, such as natural languaging. And this type of network in medical field can be used to analyze sequential data, such as pharmacokinetic and pharmacodynamic data. Another breakthrough in the modern AI is the introduction of transformer neural network. In 2017, researchers at Google published a landmark paper called Attention is All You Need, which introduced the transformer neural network. And this type of neural network is very powerful. And initially, it was used for language translation. And unlike RNN, which analyze the data sequentially, transformer neural network has an inherent advantage of being able to process various parts of the input data in parallel rather than sequentially, therefore allowing for more efficient training and unparalleled model performance. And transformer neural network has led to a lot of breakthroughs in natural language processing, for example, led to the birth of the so-called large language models. In 2022, OpenAI unveiled ChatGPT, where GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformers. And this has become a cultural phenomenon. Chances are you have either interacted with it directly or have heard discussion about its capabilities. And the technology breakthroughs like this will keep transforming our lives in ways that were previously unimaginable. In the drug development domain, the AI and machine learning can be very powerful too. They can be used to aggregate data, synthesize information, identify patterns, and optimize decision making. They can be used in drug discovery, drug development, and patient care. For example, they can be used to help us understand the disease and targets and come up with new compound screening or combination selection. And in the drug development phase, they can be used to help with clinical trial design and clinical trial conduct. And also they can be used to help precision medicine by help improve disease diagnosis, treatment selection, and monitoring. And also they can be used to facilitate drug manufacturing and post-marketing surveillance. In 2022, my colleagues and I published a paper on a landscape analysis for the AI and machine learning related submissions at CDER FDA. And today I'm going to show you an updated analysis which included submission data in year 2022. And from this slide, you can see before 2018, the regulatory submissions with AI machine learning components in CDER was very few. And then between 2018 to 2020, we can see like a 2 to 3-fold increase yearly. And then in 2021, we see a very sharp increase in this type of submissions. The number jumped to 132, which is about 10-fold compared to the year before. And then in 2022, we have identified 175 such submissions. And we think this upward trend is consistent with the overall increasing use of AI and machine learning in the biomedical field. And this trend is likely to continue given the increasing investment in this area in the pharma industry. We have also summarized the AI machine learning submissions by development stage. From the figure on the left, you can see AI and machine learning has been used throughout the drug development lifecycle, including drug discovery, non-clinical development, clinical development, and post-marketing. And based on the submissions, we see most of the applications happen at the clinical development stage. However, we need to keep in mind the cases for drug discovery we see will probably only represent a very small percentage of its actual use in drug discovery because generally speaking, FDA does not regulate drug discovery, so the sponsor don't have to tell us if they use AI in drug discovery. And on the right of the slide, you can see the distribution of those applications across different therapeutic areas. And you can see they have been used in many different therapeutic areas, while oncology, psychiatry, gastroenterology, and neurology has the highest number of such submissions. We have also summarized the type of analysis for the AI models that have been proposed to use for outcome prediction, covariate selection, confounding adjustment, pharmacometric modeling, anomaly detection, the analysis of imaging, video, or voice data, and they have also been proposed for real-world data phenotyping and natural language processing. I've also summarized the objectives of the AI machine learning application. As we talked earlier, that have been used for drug discovery and drug repurposing. And we see applications where AI and machine learning has been used for drug toxicity prediction. And we have also seen many applications that AI and machine learning were used for enrichment trial design. Generally speaking, enrichment trial design has three strategies: reduce variability, prognostic enrichment, and predictive enrichment. And we have seen AI and machine learning being proposed for all three kind of enrichment strategies. And we have also seen AI and machine learning being proposed for patient risk stratification and management. They have also been proposed to use for dose selection and dose optimization. AI systems has been proposed to use for monitoring and sometimes even enhancement of adherence to dosing regimens in clinical trials. It have also been proposed for synthetic control, digital twin generation, and they have also been proposed for endpoint and biomarker assessment and post-marketing surveillance. Now I'm going to talk briefly about regulatory considerations for AI and machine learning in drug development. A little bit disclaimer, these are my personal opinion and it's still evolving. So when we develop or evaluate or implement AI models, we always need to clearly define the context of use. And the model selection and development will need to be fit for purpose, depends on the context of use. And we've been using a risk-based credibility assessment framework. And in this framework, the model risk is determined by two factors: model influence and decision consequence. Model influence here means the influence of the model on the decision making, which means will you have other data to help support this decision in addition to the AI model, and what are the weights when you compare the different data or information to support the decision. And the decision consequence means the consequences of an incorrect decision, and an increase in either the decision consequence or model influence will increase the model risk. And we will use this model risk to guide the selection of activities for the model evaluation, the acceptance criteria, and the documentation needed. The model transparency is also very important. The black box nature of some of the AI machine learning algorithms can sometimes discourage people's willingness to use those models. And we encourage the sponsors to develop and implement methods that can increase the model's interpretability and explainability. And we also encourage the sponsors to develop and implement best practice for AI and machine learning, such as how to split the data for model development, hyperparameter training, and model evaluation. Now I'm going to share two review examples where the sponsor proposed to use AI and machine learning in drug development. In the first example, machine learning was proposed for patient risk stratification and management. Drug A is under development for a life-threatening disease. In the previous trials of drug A, all patients went through inpatient monitoring after dosing due to the concern of a potentially life-threatening drug-related adverse event. The sponsor proposed to use a machine learning model to predict the patient's risk for this adverse event based on baseline characteristics and lab values. If a patient is predicted to be of low risk, then the patient will have outpatient monitoring instead of inpatient monitoring. And initially, the sponsor was not very clear on some components of the context of use. For example, will this patient stratification strategy used in clinical trial only, or will it be used in both the clinical trials and real-world applications? And we sent them relevant comments seeking clarification. The sponsor also mentioned that this model could also be used for dosing regimen optimization. If so, it will need a different model risk analysis. And here's FDA's model risk analysis for this review case. Here we rank the model influence to be high because the model prediction will be the sole factor to determine whether a patient will go through inpatient or outpatient monitoring after dosing. And we ranked the decision consequences to be high because the model prediction will determine whether a patient will go through inpatient or outpatient monitoring after dosing. And if the model erroneously predicts a low-risk patients to be of high risk, it may not be of major concern as this patient will go through inpatient monitoring even though it may not be necessary. However, on the other hand, if the model erroneously predicts a high-risk patient to be of low risk, then that will be a major concern as the patient will not have the necessary inpatient monitoring for the potentially life-threatening adverse events. And we find that the model risk analysis can be particularly helpful to help us to find what will be the important model performance matrix. For example, in this case, we find the negative predictive value and the model sensitivity will be the major performance matrix to determine the acceptance of the model from a regulatory perspective. Now let's move to the second example. In this example, the sponsor proposed to use AI-generated digital twins and prognostic covariate adjustment to reduce the variance for the treatment effect estimates and to reduce the sample size for the placebo group. According to the sponsor, a generative deep learning-based prognostic model has been developed to produce digital twins, which are probabilistic representations of potential placebo outcome for a specific clinical trial participant, giving his or her baseline characteristics. Again, let's look at the context of use first. Here, the sponsor proposed to use AI-generated digital twins and covariate adjustment procedure to reduce the variance of the treatment effect estimates for a drug, we call it drug B, and to enable the reduction of the placebo sample size in the proposed phase 2 and phase 3 randomized controlled clinical trials with continuous endpoints. Here is the FDA's model risk analysis for this application. Here we rank the model influence to be high because the model prediction will be the sole factor to determine the patient prognostic score based on the baseline variables. But here, for the decision consequences, we rank it to be low for both its application in phase 2 and phase 3 trials. And of course, the risk for the phase 2 trial is even lower compared to its application in the phase 3 trial. This is because the covariate adjustment procedures possess several desirable statistical properties, such as minimum impact on bias or type 1 error when used in randomized controlled trials with continuous endpoints. And this is what really matters from regulatory perspective. And actually, this is consistent with the spirit in the FDA guidance for adjusting covariates in randomized controlled trials. And here is a summary of FDA's feedback and questions to the sponsors related to the AI machine learning part. We have no objection if this proposal will be implemented in a phase 2 trial as exploratory analysis as the sponsor suggested. And the use of this approach as a primary analysis in the phase 3 trial may also be acceptable, but the devils are in the details. So we asked the sponsor to provide details for the phase 3 trials, including data analysis plans. And we asked the sponsor, is the training data set for the prognostic model representative of the population that sponsor plans to enroll? And also, since generative AI will be used for prognostic score generation, we asked the sponsor to ensure that the same patient retains the same values if the procedure is repeated multiple times. And we also suggest the sponsor to use explainable AI techniques to identify key contributing features for the prognostic scores. Now, the previous two examples are cases where the sponsor proposed to use machine learning in drug development. And now I'm going to also share with you another example where FDA has used machine learning to help with regulatory decision making. In 2022, FDA issued emergency use authorization for anakinra for the treatment of COVID-19 in hospitalized adult patients. And in this case, we use machine learning to help identify the suitable population for the anakinra treatment under the EUA. In this EUA application, the efficacy and safety data to support the EUA mainly come from one single phase 3 trials called Save More. And in Save More trial, patients were selected based on a biomarker called SUPA, which is a biomarker for inflammation and immune status. And all patients who enrolled into this trial are required to have a SUPA level higher than or equal to 6 nanogram per ml. However, the SUPA test is currently not commercially available in the United States. And this posed a very big regulatory challenge because if we issue this EUA, how can the healthcare providers identify the suitable patient population for this treatment? In order to ensure patients will get access to this potentially life-saving treatment in a timely manner, FDA decided to use an innovative approach to try to find alternative way to identify patients who are allied with the patients enrolled in the Save More trial, which are have SUPA level higher than or equal to 6. And we decided to use machine learning to address this challenge. We used two different machine learning algorithms. One is based on neural networks, another one's based on intellect, to try to identify a way, actually it's a combination of various patient characteristics and commonly measured lab values to identify patients who are likely to have SUPA level higher than or equal to 6 nanogram per ml. And we use the data from the Save More trial to develop this patient identification method, which is a scoring rule system I will tell you about later. And we use data from a separate trial called SAVE to validate the scoring system. Here on the left side of the slide, it's the scoring system that is developed based on the machine learning methods. It's essentially a checklist based on 8 different criteria. And if a patient can meet at least 3 out of the 8 criteria, then we think this patient is very likely to have SUPA level higher than or equal to 6 nanogram per ml, therefore be a suitable patient for the anakinra treatment. And this scoring rule system ultimately was incorporated into the anakinra emergency use authorization fact sheet in section 1.1 patient population identification section. And this is the first time FDA used machine learning to determine a suitable patient population for drug therapy. As we talked earlier, AI and machine learning can be very powerful tools that can impact our lives positively, but they also come with unique challenges. From a technical perspective, There are challenges such as bias, generalizability, opacity, privacy, and security. And if those issues are not addressed appropriately, they can lead to disparity and fairness issues and trustworthiness issues. Last year, FDA released a discussion paper on the use of AI and machine learning in the development of drug and biological products. And the intention of this discussion paper is to spur a discussion for interested parties, and it's also included a call for engagement and collaboration. And as you have probably heard from Dr. Tala Fakari's talk yesterday, FDA is also planning to release a guidance for industry that will be focusing on the use of AI and machine learning for regulatory decision makings for drug development, which will talk about the risk-based credibility framework that I mentioned earlier. And we look forward to your feedback. Now I'd like to switch gears and talk about some of the AI machine learning activities in Office of Clinical Pharmacology, Office of Translational Sciences at CDER FDA. In 2019, our office launched an innovative data analytics program, which is a forward-thinking program intended to increase our capability related to AI, machine learning, digital health technology, real-world evidence, and other emerging data sciences, and in order to support the advancement in drug development and regulation. And this program has 4 interconnected and synergistic components: education, research, collaboration, and fellowship. And in 2021, when we noticed the surge of regulatory submissions with AI and machine learning components, our office formally established a machine learning review team. And currently, our review mostly focusing on the use of AI and machine learning for precision medicine and clinical trial design. I would also like to briefly mention about AI and machine learning research in our office. We have conducted landscape analysis, methodological explorations, and we also try to apply the technologies for therapeutic optimization and individualization. And I have included some reference articles in case you're interested to know more detail. In March this year, CDER has established a new Center of Excellence called Quantitative Medicine Center of Excellence. And here, the quantitative medicine refers to the exposure-based biological and statistical models that leverage data from various sources, such clinical data, non-clinical data, and real-world data sources to facilitate drug development, regulatory decision-making, and patient care. And under the QMCOE, one of the major focus is machine learning and artificial intelligence, especially their usage to support model-informed drug development. Here are the take-home messages of my presentation today. AI and machine learning can play an increasingly impactful role in drug development. They can improve both the efficiency and probability of success of drug development, and they can help to advance precision medicine. Both opportunities and challenges lay ahead, and more education, research, and collaborations are needed to move the field forward. And I hope many of you will join us in this endeavor to push what's possible. And now I have 2 challenge questions. The first one is a multiple choice question. How can AI enhance drug development? A, by improving the probability of success of drug development. B, by improving the efficiency of drug development. C, by advancing precision medicine to tailor treatment to individuals. D, all the above. And the correct answer is D, all the above. If you achieve that one, then our mission for this session has been achieved. Now this is the second challenge question, true or false. Machine learning is considered a subset of AI. And answer is, this is correct. Last but not least, I would like to thank my colleagues who have contributed to the work that has been presented here, and I want to thank you all for your attention. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Liu. We now have about 10 minutes for questions before our lunch break. Would you like to sit down or stay? You can stand if you'd like. That's
Oh,
fine.
I don't have the mic.
Oh, right.
actually, so-
Okay. Okay.
Thank
Any
you.
questions from inside the room? Nothing? Think about it. Nora?
Do you expect that AI could be used to enhance or even replace clinical trial data monitoring, committee safety data review? And do you anticipate that the 2006 FDA guidance will be updated to include AI contribution?
That's a great question. In my personal opinion, I think it's going to be very hard for AI to replace humans, especially when there are like responsibility and liabilities involved, right? On the other hand, I think AI can be great tools that can be leveraged for various tasks, including clinical monitoring. And I think in the future, it's likely to be a combination of AIs and human experts working together to help with clinical trial safety monitoring.
Question from in the room?
Yes, thank you for your presentation, Dr. Liu. It's very involved and very detailed. I appreciate that. So you were saying that from an OCP perspective, you guys would be inclined to say accepting something in a phase 3 based upon phase 2, as long as things were equal, right? Thinking purely from a compliance perspective in terms of if I'm auditing my team's work, there's nothing nefarious. They just made a mistake. How would we ensure that there was no, they use apples versus apples? Because we're talking about generative. So if they, in the phase 2, they kept it, as they moved to phase 3, they actually changed a way they scored or leveled. How would we detect that? Is it a validation? How would we say, I'm auditing that or trying to make sure prior to our submission to the FDA? How would we ensure that?
May I ask a clarification? So are you referring to use AI for auditing, or are you talking about auditing like AI
Auditing.
generated data?
Auditing the latter part, the latter.
Okay, that's a good question. I think there are ways that we can audit the data, no matter it's generated by AI or human. Um, I think in auditing, I think a lot of the things in the end are gonna be like responsibility and legal considerations, right? Because AI will be able to generate data or text, but AI cannot be the responsible party. So in the end, anything in the report will have a human expert that signs the report, and that person that signs the report will be the person responsible to ensure the accuracy of the text, no matter it was initially generated by AI or by human. So therefore, I think the burden probably will lie on the sponsor to ensure if you use AI in generating like text or reports in your operations, you will need to make sure things are correct.
No, I reckon I agree. So if we can't assume that their data plan is going to be completely adhered to, like I said, there's nothing nefarious. It's just an accident or error or misperception in terms of application. How do we ensure? How do we assess? Is there something that you would recommend that say, because we want to give you a quality product to make a submission so that there's nothing that stands out that delays our application or anything that we could have detected in-house?
That's a great question. First, I want to clarify, like FDA does not regulate everything. There are certain tasks that it's the sponsor's responsibility and risk. And some of the other things, for example, it will impact the safety efficacy or quality of the drug. And then FDA will need to review that. We don't review everything. But there are some general principles that can be leveraged by anyone who work with AI for any context. I think for whatever task you want to use AI for, you want to make sure the model performance is good. It's fit for purpose. And in terms of model evaluation, there are many different ways to do the evaluation. Like sometimes for some of the models, you could evaluate like the model, the coding and things. And another way is to look at the model performance. And for that, you probably need to create some realistic and representative scenarios and making sure your AI model can perform well under various conditions. Because very often we see like AI model might be working well with one scenario, then it will not work well with another scenario. And it might be important to also to include some of the techniques that will continue to monitor the performance of the AI model, because like you probably heard about data drifting and the model performance will change, right? That's important for you to include like techniques and procedures to ensure your AI model will always perform as expected under various conditions at various times.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
That was excellent talk. You set a perfect segue for my question about what talking about the model performance. I was just curious because the accuracy and explainability are inversely correlated. How FDA takes that into account when doing models risk analysis and making ethical considerations?
Sorry, I didn't hear that part very clear. You said two things are closely correlated. Can you say?
Model accuracy and the explainability. Right. So I was wondering how FDA takes that into account.
That's an excellent
And
question.
making models risk analysis and making ethical considerations.
That's a great question. It's been like a big challenge for the entire AI field for a long time, how to balance explainability versus model performance. Generally speaking, when your AI model gets more and more complicated, and then explainability goes down while the performance goes up. So you need to find a sweet spot for your context of use. But I think the science is also evolving. There are ways that we could develop AI algorithms that has good performance while have good explainability. For example, I want to share like the AI technology we use for the anakinra case. Actually, the neural network architecture was something developed by some very talented data scientists in our team. They developed a neural network actually can generate a scoring rule system or checklist as an end product. So while this algorithm can still achieve really good model performance as compared to the other like AI machine learning algorithms, the final product, the checklist or the scoring rule, it's very easy to understand and explain, right? And that biological plausibility also helped for physicians to feel comfortable using them. So I think science is evolving. We're doing better and better in this area. Thank you for the great question.
I am Dave Jaworski. In my work, we're finding that a lot of times when you start with one set of data, everything looks really good with your model. But then as you gather new data coming in, all of a sudden your model's changing. But you're not going to get the same value for like a patient that you're working with or a manufacturing process where I spend most of my time. It seems like everybody wants the same values to come up every time. It doesn't work when in reality. How do you look at that from a regulatory perspective? And how do we have to concentrate on our prediction intervals, trying to get them narrower, or how do we address that situation?
That's a great question, and also a very important issue for the field. The model is only going to be as good as the data that used to train it. And this generalizability issue for models are not unique to AI models. It's actually applied to all the other models as well, right? And one way to ensure the generalizability is when you train the model, you try to find data set that is diverse and inclusive, representative of the population that you intend to use the model. And that can help with the generalizability issue. And I think what you mentioned is especially like a very common issue, especially for some of the academic publications. No disrespect. I think academic institutions made great contributions to the field, but very often, like the AI model were trained from data from one institution, right? And then when you use the model for another institution, it may not work because another institution may have different patient population or even different like medical practice, and like model performs well in one institute may not work well for the other. And similar things you can see sometimes when people develop AI algorithm like based on data from one clinical site, and it may not work with others. So it's really, really important to consider those issues at the design stage. When you think about the data, like where to look for training data and testing data, consider to have this data set like diverse, unbiased, representative.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we're actually out of time for questions. Let's try to squeeze this last one in. I saw they just put some time back on the clock.
So the FDA is placing great importance on clinical trial diversity. So how is the FDA evaluating and encouraging diversity and equity in the representation of the models and data sets that sponsors are using? Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question. This is also a really important topic to the entire FDA. We have like released a lot of guidance in these areas. Like actually over the past like decades, we have various guidance centered around this issue, encouraging the diversity, encouraging the inclusion of various populations, like older adults, like minorities, into clinical trials to make the clinical trial data representative. And I think in recent years, there's a guidance that focused on to ask the sponsor to have a diversity plan. I think I don't know, probably you read that guidance, right? So there are a lot of initiatives. And FDA even have office called Office of Minority Health and Health Equity. They're just really centered around this issue of health equity and diversity. I cannot give you a full list of the initiatives they are taking, but there's just so many things going on.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Liu.